Writing an angel check is easy. Knowing why is the flex. Angel investing. Underused, misunderstood, explained badly. Angels Decoded, an educated and raw take. In cahoots with Play Money.
This is a really good inflection point to pause and look at what's happened as a result of AI, not just in the products, but the access of information to everyone all at once. And that inspiration and innovation then all of a sudden opens up to a much bigger group of people, which is fascinating in so many ways, right? Because what we see are people that never thought they could achieve it without being in the heart of big tech, all of a sudden creating these amazing companies.
Absolutely. And the joy of being able to create an amazing company surrounded in a place where your friends and your family and your network is already, like that builds sustainable companies, not burnout, not unethical corruption. And it builds a broader base of companies because you're pulling from a different local expertise. There's things they do better here that no one else can do.
And that local expertise is fascinating too, because by nature of being somewhere outside of those places, you have a different perspective on the world. Your life has been different. You've observed different things. And quite often not having everything on tap can allow you to see opportunity that other people probably take for granted. You're not seeing it because you've seen it all the time.
Right. Exactly. It's so interesting too, because now that I'm out, in the hinterlands, you see how different regions are approaching their how do we seed new businesses problem. Tulsa cornered me the other night and they gave me they're like, we want Play Money to come to Tulsa. Here's what we've tried in the past. And they tried attracting people from the outside with money and incentives. And those people came for the money and the incentives for a year and then they left. And like they're contrasting it with how, Birmingham is building locally, how Louisiana is now throwing a ton of money not at accelerators, but at incubators, taking people that have come out of their core industries and sort of doing the legwork of, we should build in these areas. You have these expertise. Let us do that with you, which is different than I just came up with an idea and I'm going to, give you basic startup 101 education. They're really getting more disciplined and I would say more proud of being local and realizing that's a differentiator, right? Everything is not throwaway sales SaaS and core LLMs.
I like seeing communities being proud of where they're from and helping find creative ways to not only sustain communities, but have them thrive and almost reinvent themselves. And I look at places and whether it's a result of South by or not, but Austin has become a massive tech hub. And
Yeah.
10, 15 years ago, that wasn't the case. And I know that it creates the negative flow and effect can sometimes be property prices go up. But what it also creates is opportunities for people to stay local, get local jobs, and find careers that they wouldn't have had previously as well without having to move cities.
Exactly. Which is, the tie-in. We met with this women's leadership group here that mentors all the top executive women at the big corporate companies. And their take on it is like the next level of that. They're thinking about it in a particularly female way of they want their kids and their grandkids to be here. So how can they provide the capital to make those jobs happen? It was amazing because it was they unlocked so much wealth, but they had a particular version of economic growth they wanted to see that was right in line with that, but the reasons were incredibly human. Right? You couldn't bring them back to numbers and economics. It's, I want my kids here. It's interesting because Birmingham in particular, they had a $1 billion exit about 5 years ago. And that entrepreneur has stayed local and built a giant incubator for new ideas and is seeding all of these things around town because he wants to build his family and his life here. They had a $500 million exit about 10 years ago, but they think that $500 million exit, they estimated it created nearly $2 billion of economic value. They have a big tower in the middle of town. They've employed people. They've trained people how to grow high growth startups that are now starting their own companies. It is a multi-year seeding process, but you see it here really raw because it's early stage, but you can see it and feel it.
And today we're focusing on the map and how it's changed. And historically, you talk about people wanting to be in San Francisco, and New York has created a tech hub over the last 30 years as well.
Mm-hmm.
there's been a real focus on those cities, but today we're looking at the contrarian view, which is how does a business who's in a regional location outside of those main areas not only survive but thrive, because there is a different type of opportunity that exists. And today, the AI stack means that creating a company has never been easier in the
Mhm.
sense of how you actually build, distribute, scale, and the mainstream nature of startups too. I would say in combination, what's happened is that startup founders have become rock stars in their own right. People follow them in mass media because they're interesting characters, and maybe it's because they're narcissists, maybe it's because they're doing something innovative. It doesn't really matter, but that has made it aspirational for a lot of people. And what you're reflecting on there is really interesting because you're talking about the economic flow on effect to local communities, and building community for a lot of folks is really critical.
Absolutely. And, but like, let's take a moment of like, record scratch. How did I even get here? Right. I'm sitting in Birmingham. I've been on this planet for over 50 years and I've never been to Alabama. But 2 weeks ago, I sat down and looked at our site and realized that, like, unbeknownst to me, we had two of our most popular active deals were actually from here in Birmingham. Both of them were backed by national VCs and California based angel groups. They weren't made as regional bets. But all of a sudden, I was like, what are we doing with so many Alabama companies? And it dovetailed with some stuff that brought me to the region, but it snuck up on me too. The power of what's happening locally and across the country.
And the part that's interesting, you talked about some significant exits, and the typical behavior is if you're a successful founder and you have an exit at that scale, what you'll normally do is you'll stay close to the community, you'll be seeking out other founders, you'll reinvest a lot of that capital as an angel investor, maybe and as an LP into a fund, but you naturally gravitate to coming back into it. So the
Hmm.
connection and community, there's a really interesting flow on effect there because all of a sudden that person will start investing in more local businesses because that's their community and that's who they know. And
Right.
what we're seeing overcome by that is that echo chamber or bubble that happens in San Francisco where it's like old man's club are scratching each other's backs of deals getting done over coffee, lunch, golf courses, whatever they're doing, cold plunges. It's a world that we need to change and shift. And there's no shortage of capital in these cities that you're in, and there's no shortage of innovation. What we need
Mhm.
is the infrastructure and the exposure to be able to put a spotlight on it.
Yes. And it used to be just a few years ago, I would say, or maybe 10 years ago now, but it feels like a few years ago to me. It was these regions don't have the knowledge to do startups. So we needed this accelerator model that needed to go teach people to do startup innovation. That's no longer an issue. That's been dealt with in table stakes. People know how to build startups. That information is available. Being able to do it now with the help of AI takes away some of the generic talent pool issues. So what you're left with is, oh my gosh, I can build at home with my local network and very specific regional expertise that creates a natural moat, right? If you live somewhere like Birmingham and you're serving the industries around you, you are pulling domain experts into your companies and you're pulling people that can get you the next sale because they know the person making the buying decision at at your customer site in a way you would never know if you were, a 24-year-old in San Francisco going, oh gosh, where does a problem exist? Like, it's all of a sudden it becomes a competitive advantage because you're in the middle of the market.
Yeah, and living and breathing the problem and being surrounded by it, it may not be your absolute expertise, but if you talk to enough people in a community, you get a lot of sentiment. And if you're savvy and tuned in to what's happening, that rhetoric and conversation can fuel ideas in a way that someone who is isolated from that, living and breathing the problem, is not seen. So you're right, that insight
Mhm.
is critical, but you need the infrastructure you touched on. Capital's important. I want to ask you
Mm.
about this. There's a real bias that happens, unfortunately, with more VC land than angel, and I love that Play Money is seeing this pattern for angels to be spread across the country and across the world. But VC typically discriminates against companies from regional areas, and it's strange. And I'm not sure if that's a personal relation situation. They know someone, so they stay local, or whether it's they don't think that someone from these places actually have the capability to create a huge unicorn exit that they need to please their LP.
It's a funny one. A lot of it's being lazy. you know what you know. You don't want to get on a plane. Your life is cushy. There's enough happening around you that, you have a finite number of dollars. It's the path of least resistance, right? It's the more adventurous ones, or the ones that start here, that will invest in the relationships here and learning the industries and learning the players. But no, I think it's a laziness thing. Go to the highest concentration and let it come to you, which means that the biggest moments of arbitrage, and right, what you're looking for as a VC is outliers and arbitrage. They're not sitting in San Francisco and New York, right? If you're a smaller fund, you're competing tooth and nail for overvalued deals, whereas you come here and you're like, interesting.
Yeah, we've talked previously about the black hole and VCs avoiding certain contexts and constructs because of that. And if you were to reframe that as an opportunity, which you just described, it's people that are looking for capital don't have the connections, but it doesn't mean anymore that the business doesn't have the ability to scale, if anything. And I can observe as an Australian, lived in the US now for a long time, but I'm always blown away by the scale of companies. And I'm on the board of a company called PhotoSesh, and they do the most specific thing, but it's scaled beyond my belief, which is taking photographs for Google search. If you're driving on a freeway and you want to get some food, they do photographs of the approach in, so you see landmarks, signage, etc. So to help navigate your way to find certain restaurants and hotels, etc., it aids search. So they're working with huge franchises across America to help customers that are on road trips. And it sounds niche, but it's a massive scale because the economic spread of the US is so far and runs so deep, is that in those centers, there's people with money, they want to support their community, and that opportunity is so untapped.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think it's important that we, like, the importance of tapping, you have to understand what happens a few notches out. And this is what I learned. I spent some time in Portland at the end of last year because we underpin a bunch of Portland's burgeoning ecosystem to angel invest in their own companies. And Portland got burned. Portland has, in rapid succession, had $2 billion exits, Urban Airship and New Relic. But because Portland doesn't have an existing angel ecosystem, those companies had to go outside their local markets to raise even the earliest stages of capital. The minute they're outside those local markets, they do more hiring there, and then they raise more capital there. And by the time they had this exit and money went back into their investors, none of those early investors were in market in Portland. So the money went to other places. So they didn't have their own capital base that just leveled up. So they had the exits, but the local investors didn't level up with it because they didn't get any of the returns. So they couldn't seed the next 100 companies. So it's a compounding problem. The economic reach of the country is huge, but unless the core capital anchors the company and where they started, it diminishes the potential to have focused impact over time.
So we're seeing a negative impact there in Portland. You're telling me about Louisiana. Can you talk us about the legislation and the shift that happened to actually nurture and fuel the opposite of what happened there?
Yeah, no, it's so God, you guys must think I'm the biggest startup geek in the world. Tell me about startups in Louisiana. Louisiana did something this week that all my regional startup ecosystem friends were all abuzz about. They redefined all of the language in their legislation and their policy for seeding and funding new businesses. It used to use the word entrepreneur. They changed it all to say startup and founder because they want to differentiate between I'm just starting a small business. And not just starting a small business is hard and risky and crazy brave, and more people are doing it. But there's a difference between that and a true startup that you think is going to create hundreds of thousands of jobs and is designed to have an exit that brings financial economic impact back to the area on top of the economic impact the business itself is creating. And that's a different kind of beast. And so a lot of regions have gotten themselves sort of confused or diluted their potential impact because they've mixed the two together. Louisiana really clearly differentiated those two things. And then they moved to say, and here's how we're going to fund and start those new things. You're not going to try to attract strangers to move to Louisiana, which is what Oklahoma tried to do for years and Tulsa tried to do for years. They said, we are going to take people coming out of our core industries that are getting downsized out or want something different or have that entrepreneurial edge. And we're going to work with them to incubate new businesses that are I mean, in VC terms, they call it, we have a right to win. We know something and have expertise locally or customers locally that no one else has. This is the place we're going to play. Like Louisiana should not be building core LLM models. That's not their place to win. But like oil and gas and I don't know, pollution, whatever their right to win is an area, that's where they can innovate and can out innovate other parts of the country. And that's a super smart model because it's two-pronged. It's smart.
And what happens there is you have that loop, right? You have local expertise and knowledge in an industry that's been existing, people that are looking for ways to reinvent it, evolve, find new opportunities within those industries. And that creates this little ecosystem of mentorship, advisory, capital access, and filling that next generation. And for a local city or state to then fuel that with tax incentives and other benefits, it makes a lot of sense because it pays for itself over time. You keep jobs, you grow jobs, you create opportunity, and you put your city on the map. You may even start to bring people because as a New Yorker, I know firsthand how expensive it is to live here, and I love this city, but I could go and do what I do to a certain degree if I moved an hour out, and my cost of living would probably go down by half. And you go to these places here, if you've got tax incentives, cost of living is cheaper, and you've got a network and you can build a sustainable industry, that feels pretty appealing.
Right. And like, let's not discount the fact that a cheaper cost of living allows you to take new and different risks. I mean, I moved from California to Colorado because it allowed us to operate as a family on one income. So I could take more risks as a founder. That's a fundamental restructuring of what can be created.
Absolutely. I love it. So if you're an angel investor listening and you're defaulting to the stereotype of San Francisco or that bi-coastal New York, California investment, what should they be thinking about in the sense of opportunities out there and how do they start to explore?
Yep. Well, I would say this. We looked at the data from Play Money. 60% of the investors on our platform are not from California or New York. So like we have built an environment that is attracting those people because they want to be an angel, but they're not seeing the deal flow every day. So I would say, gosh, if you're interested, first get on a platform that's showing you the deal flow. But there are so much opportunity then to invest locally where, you get all the great things about angel investing, the high potential upside, the curiosity and interest in new industries. I think there's like a triple bottom line benefit then if you invest local because you get your return from the investment, but the local economic impact boosts every other aspect of your life. And I think those are the arbitrage opportunities that we should be looking at over the next 10 years. We don't need to go anywhere. We can operate with what we know. And VCs aren't going to touch those first. So again, arbitrage for angels. We're essential and there's more upside.
I love it. And the positive impact from an economical standpoint too is to keep the population spread, keeping local economies going, letting people explore new areas. You're in Alabama. It's amazing. And I'm excited by this. And we're well over time today. This has been a really interesting conversation. We're at number 19 of Angels Decoded. My name is Andy Walsh from Startups Decoded. My friend Cheryl Kellond. What a fun way to explore angel investment while you are on the road.
I love it. And anyone who's interested, letsplaymoney.com/Alabama. You can see the most exciting things coming up here. I'm thrilled for it. Thanks for having me.
Angels Decoded, a weekly podcast for people learning the craft. Angel investing made easy. Subscribe, then decide. Angels Decoded, in cahoots with Play Money.